Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting Propagandacast with me, your host, Imperial Dane. And today I have for you a 1 versus 1, in the night of Semois. Yes, indeed, we'll be having another match in Semois. There's been a lot of fighting in Semois, apparently all the Semois-like towns, France. Yes, indeed, there's apparently was a blueprint for it, and it sort of got over-typified, but there you go. A lot of fighting right here, and I'm thus getting a lot of replays on Semois. Not that I'm complaining, although some might find it a bit too much. But there you go. Of course, I'll be having plenty of games up for the rest of the week, sort of due to years again. 700 subscribers again. Wonderful, marvelous, and let's hope we reach 800 subscribers as fast as possible. Plus, of course, there's the whole I graduated, at least partly, to a higher degree of education. Of course, now I can continue on the next bit of education. Of course, means I'll be slightly more occupied. That won't change the schedule, but it certainly means I'll have the next 2 years covered, partly also economically, which is rather important. So, of course, with that out of the way, of course, we are Semois. Rather nice map. Again, sort of separated into 3 compartments. Home compartment, center compartment, sort of fighting compartment, or the town compartment, whatever you like. You have some high yield munitions in either side here, and sort of otherwise there's not a lot of higher type except right next to the bases. The center compartment, besides those two, doesn't really have a lot of high resources. So actually, if you want to really hurt your opponent's resources, you really have to head into their compartment of the map, which of course presents some known challenges, difficulties, and of course there's also other bits, like there are 3 choke points on each map of a sense, well, for the compartment, although of course you rarely see anyone trying to lock all 3 down. That's going to be a bit too much. Usually you just see the most obvious one, the one right next to the base, and it tends to work because a lot of people will sort of go grrr, and then sort of continually try to attack down it without really trying to swing about, and perhaps trying from another angle. Fun thing to note. So let us go have a look at our opponents. In the northern corner we will be seeing Nixon. Apparently, not entirely sure this shall be Richard Nixon, who was clearly not a crook. But there you go. American 4th Infantry Division, who shall be going up against LatrodectusUnloaded. Yes, indeed, unloaded, not reloaded, not side-loaded or uploaded or downloaded. It's unloaded, with his Kettenkrad ready to lead the 2nd Panzer Division's Reconnaissance Battalion into the fight. Hurrah, huzzah, and some lovely flak fillings as well. One of the typical German AA weaponries beside the Flak 88 and the Flak... oh, was it... oh dear, was it 37? Oh, can't remember, was it 41? Nonetheless, it was a 37mm gun. It had a big caliber. It's sort of the same gun that the Ostwind uses, in fact. But let's get down to it. And of course, the Ostwind and the Wirbelwind, while present in company affairs, weren't really that present in the war, particularly not in Normandy, I believe. It was more the Gepard Flak Panzer, regular half-tracks with AA guns, armored, of course, and the what is called the Möbelwagen, which was essentially a sort of Panzer IV, which then sort of had a curious mount on top, rather flat, bit like a nest in fact, and then sort of could clap down its side to found infantry, but would be equipped with either flak filling or flak 37mm flak cannon. Engineer sending up the barracks, nothing unusual there. And looks like LatrodectusUnloaded is going for a rather bold approach. Logistic company right away. Whatever shall he be up to, this cheeky fellow? Kettenkrad securing the fuel right there, nothing unusual there. We'll probably be trying to swing sort of east here. Most unopposed, although trying to take this point as well would be a good idea in the great big book of good ideas. And Americans are securing the fuel here and heading towards the center. Nothing really focused on this fuel munitions point on either side. Gewehr 43 equipped for the Panzer Grenadiers. We'll of course have to see what he will be up to. But no Panzer Grenadiers, instead we will be seeing a Vampire half-track. That's pretty early. I mean, I'm not going to say it's a completely bad idea, but I'd rather recommend getting some more fighting units out first before you then sort of sneak in the Funkwagen, which means radio wagon, aka the Vampire, out to begin possibly sneaking your opponent's resources. But then again, that's just rather why I wanted to show it. Yes, indeed, my goodness, ulterior motives. Yes, I know, cheeky that. But yes, it is the Vampire half-track, which is a rather underused unit, which I don't feel it should be, in particular after this patch actually made it bloody useful by allowing it to cloak while it siphoned resources. Engineers forcing away the Kettenkrad kitting it out of there. Kettenkrad basically meaning chain bike or motor, sort of like that. The kitten meaning chain, in fact, or track. There was also the Kettenhunde, which were not sort of dogs with tracks on them like a tank. No, they were basically the German nickname for the military police, which the Kettenhunde, which because they sort of had a sort of, I believe it's called a gorget right down their front, sort of a plate saying they were field police, and it was sort of caught up on chains. Slight detail there, and Americans are pushing hard towards the center. Panzer grenadiers in the north. Not really noticing that. No further panzer grenades, although there's a scout car on the way, but currently the Americans are securing most of the map. Heavy push with the riflemen. This is rather why I didn't want to see something like a vampire half-track this out fast, at least certainly not a scout car as well. He needs some panzer grenades, he needs fighting units, although it looks like he's popping up here, and of course right there you saw extra 5 fuel. And what does this mean? It also means your opponent is going to get 5 less fuel. And I believe it might also take some resources away from these points and give it to our friends in the Wehrmacht. Then again, apparently not. A bit unsure how it worked. This seems to be a bit of funkiness there. But nonetheless, there's going to be 5 fuel less for the American all the way through. Scout car moves out. Sonderkraftfahrzeug 21, only equipped with the light machine gun. Leichte Panzerspähwagen, one of the regular used ones. And the other riflemen are exposing themselves to the flak feeling, opening up. Standing out in the open, scout car moving in as well. Panzer grenades marching in, although the flak feelings first salvo didn't have much luck. Firing away as well. Kettenkraut was lost, most tragic. A jeep has hit the field, I can see. But again, losing up Kettenkraut this early is not considered good luck. Riflemen forced away by the combined efforts of the flak feeling, panzer grenadiers, and the scout car, although the panzer grenadiers took some losses. The panzer grenadiers are sneaking about here in the north. Vampire half-track still sneaking about. Jeep charges in right at this force. Panzer grenades out in the open. Get away there, Latrodectus. Get some more units out on the field. Of course, the American might be getting a slight surprise, of course, because he'll be getting a lot less fuel this way, although he does have the other points, or at least well, not that one, but still quite important. Jeep firing away at the scout car. It does slightly more damage than the infantry half-track, but its turret is rather slow, and of course it's a rather big target and not very tough, so keep that in mind. Scout car fighting away though. Panzer grenadiers are ready to serve the fatherland. Charging ahead. As to German reconnaissance strategy, they actually relied on the scout cars, armored cars in fact, to actually run around behind enemy lines, while the panzer grenadiers with whatever support they could muster would breach the lines first, then the armored cars would slip through and then sort of do a bit of reconnaissance behind enemy lines. Just a bit of fun there. Scout car will be needing repairs. Still no contact with territory there. Currently the Americans are still holding most of it, although Latrodectus does have the sneaky advantage with the fuel, and probably our American friend is not noticing it at all. Nixon pushes his riflemen further forwards, and a good suppressive volley from the panzer grenadiers firing away with their semi-automatic rifles, really giving it all it got, suppressing the riflemen, cutting them down out in the open, while the Kettenkraut provides light cover. Well, it is heavy cover, but they need to stand all behind it, and they're not currently using it. But the riflemen are still taking quite some losses. 3 men down for only 1 panzer grenadier. Another rifleman might soon be dead. There we go. Further riflemen, though, are arriving on the scene, and Latrodectus probably want to consider getting out of there. Now focusing on all the panzer grenadiers and repairing this scout car. I'd really recommend getting a Kettenkraut and perhaps some anti-tank assets before it's too late. Even with the fuel being siphoned off, it's not going to be lasting much longer. And now these panzer grenadiers sorely need to get the devil out of there. Good show, Latrodectus. But really, I mean, he's not having the best of start, but he really needs to be careful. And again, remember, always have anti-tank assets. You don't want to be caught your pants down when there's an M8 on the way. And rather, that's what I fear his current situation will result him ending in. Of all the situations that could possibly happen, now the scout car is leading a charge with further panzer grenadiers on the way. Like Gräbner at Arnhem Bridge, although Gräbner ended up pretty badly. Rifleman tank kind of good, and this is of course a good movement. Why is that? Because he's standing on the side where the rifleman can't really fire out of. Again, note windows. Position yourselves there where there is less chance of him actually hitting you. And actually less men firing, and of course focus the most there. Engineers charging in. Latrodectus ought to be firing them down in case they have flamethrowers. There we go. Engineers getting gunned down. Another panzer grenadier hits the field. He's 5 panzer grenadiers again. I'm not liking this, in particular when he does have all this fuel he's siphoning in, among other things. Use it, spend it, build something, get something that can deal with those sneaky Yankees before they get something nasty. Panzer support command up. Well, that's always good. Panzer grenade securing territory. Scout car trying to take all this back. Jeep charging in, opening up. And oh dear, it's the most wounded Panzer grenades out in the open versus the Jeep. This could end up badly. Vampire half-track still sitting there, humming along to perhaps some tunes. Panzer support command is up. Panzer grenades holding the line. These chaps might want to get out of there before further forces arrive. From the north, riflemen charging in. Our American friends still haven't really built anything. Perhaps again he's... Yes, there we go. Motor pool, but by now the Panzer support command will be up and we might be seeing some anti-tank half-tracks. Riflemen charging in. Oh dear, some taking losses. Panzer grenades are retreating. Good show. And the riflemen out in negative cover again. Remember, negative cover is bad. Logistic upgrade on the scout car. Whatever shall he intend to do with it? I don't know. Riflemen hiding in the church, but again, the church is not really suited for infantry. Machine guns, yes. Infantry, not so much. And they are getting gunned down, suffering quite some losses. Scout car penetrating through and getting the upgrade for the Panzer support command. That's rather interesting, rather poor, but then again, he'll soon have the fuel for whatever he gets out of there. Then he just needs some manpower, and these riflemen are getting slaughtered. Oh dear, that was nice and jolly for Latrodectus. Other Panzer grenades back, being reinforced. Scout car securing this fuel point, and looks like our American friends did lay down a barrier here. Tank traps and barbed wire. Nothing here though, so the Panzer Elite commander could basically just sort of pop around it. Nothing too hard there, although Latrodectus should perhaps be being a bit more aggressive with his Panzer grenades, not sort of just having them stand about, having a party. You know, they don't cut faster when they're together. They need to be moved about, in particular when you're the Panzer Elite. Your key bits are aggressiveness, mobility, firepower. Use that, don't just stand about with all of your Panzer grenadiers in one bloody spot, mate. What's a trip off to the eastern front with you, and then you can stand about all you want. Panzer grenadiers moving out.
Send your mission orders.
Not a lot of further weapons. Scout car continuing to penetrate and steal territory from the Americans. Engineers sneaking about. No mines though from Nixon. That's a bit unfortunate. Although looks like a large force is moving in. Panzer grenades ready to cover. Panzer IV or Hotchkiss, whatever might be coming out from the Panzer support command, can be called in. He certainly has the manpower and the fuel. Whoops, calling a flak things for some reason. Panzer grenades in a rather unfortunate situation, and they need to get out there, and Latrodectus needs to use his Panzer support command. And our American friend needs to get something out of that motor pool before it's too late as well. Panzer grenades slowly retreating, but the rest need to get out of there as well. Taking heavy losses, and there we go. Oh dear. Only one to act as a rear guard, and they are taking losses themselves. And there we go. A Panzer IV F1 on the way. The 2nd Panzer Division did apparently have some older Panzers as well. I didn't know that, including apparently perhaps even some Panzer IIIs actually, or what's that, the 116th. Oh, I do mess it up. I don't really have any sort of force organization charts, at least not for the Normandy battle. Americans pushing forward into the center once more. Finally, the motor pool lights up, and let us go have a look at him. Rather noticingly, of course, he has very little fuel, and that's despite him actually not having built a lot that requires fuel. But what's that? Oh, right. Das Funkwagen, mein Herr. Yes, indeed. And never mind that he's barely getting any fuel. I mean, he's getting 8 fuel because, oh right, the Funkwagen is also taking fuel from this point, and the munitions from here at this point. He's getting not an awful lot. Brilliant. And that's also why I want to place it like that, for example, right next to his base if possible. Unless, in a way that of course means he doesn't actually know about it, because he'll be really drained for resources. I mean, that's an incredible advantage that most Panzer Elite players, including me, are not really aware of, and not really using it, because again, it's sort of something we've not been aware of for a long time, but really pioneers into this like Latrodectus are certainly making quite an effort. And a Sterling 1 it is. Scout car in the center, getting burned alive, but the engineers are getting gunned down alive, and then they're dead. Panzer IV charges forward. Panzer grenadiers ought to get ready, and we are seeing defensive operations up. Infantry reduction chosen for the Amerikaner. Scout car securing the central point, but the M8 is moving in, and the Panzer IV, what is it doing? It's charging completely in without support. Now the scout car might be lost. Oh dear. The scout car, having done such a job of killing 7 Americans, will now be lost due to Latrodectus' rather unfortunate tendency of not supporting it. And there we go. Sonderkraftfahrzeug is no more so Sonder. It's lost, gone, kaboom. Scrap metal. a wreck on the road. Possibly to victory, possibly to defeat. And Panzer IV just charges onwards. Not entirely sure this will be the best of ideas. We'll have to see. Riflemen survive the first shot. No sticky bombs as of yet. It seems like barely again. Barely any fuel, and he hasn't apparently been aware of it, which is a bit interesting. I mean, if you're noticing a rather odd fuel rate like this, you probably ought to be thinking that, well, he's probably stealing my fuel. Cheeky sort. And locking down there, hoping to knock out that motor pool, but Rangers are advancing. Ready to lead the way. Panzer Grenadiers sort of sticking together. Good show, but he needs to be a bit more bold with them all and move about. Engineers getting gunned down. Still no mines. Apparently repairing the Jeep. And the Panzer IV is suddenly finding themselves around it. All the opening up on the M8. But Rangers are moving in from the rear. Bazookas hitting. Almost knocking out half the health. Although the M8 is taking quite a bit of damage. Panzer IV pulls out. Not there to fight Rangers. But the Rangers continue the hunt. The M8 is unable to fight onwards because its main gun has been knocked out by the high explosive shells of the Panzer IV. Oh dear, will the Panzer IV knock out the M8? Yes, indeed. A lucky shot means the Panzer IV can't get out of there. Although the Rangers now utterly exhausted. Of course, that's something you have to remember. Rangers, if you fire up, they're also going to get exhausted afterwards. So if you're hoping to catch something afterwards after you're fired up, forget about it. Keep doing what it can, but the Panzer Grenadiers are simply too many. Getting a Kettenkrad, good show, and he has gone for Luftwaffe. You can note that due to the camouflage pattern on the rear, but he's not really moving it about. I mean, who could be, I don't know, taking some points right here, you know, doing a bit of harassment, you know, all the fun stuff. Riflemen centering around the forward barracks, which has been established in the church, the House of God. Panzer IV moving in. Again, I'm not entirely keen on this, in particular not so close to the enemy front lines without any repairs. And Rangers are moving in. I mean, he ought to be aware that the Rangers will probably be trying to hunt in on the Panzer IV once the Jeep notices that, oh wait, that's Panzer IV. It's a very nice target. Panzer Grenadiers need to repair. Rangers advancing. One single bazooka shot that connects, and that's Panzer IV. Will be no more. Panzer Grenadiers holding the line and are forced into retreat. The Panzer IV taking the main road. Running away. Another Panzer IV though arrives on the field. Anti-tank gun on the way. Rangers, riflemen getting blasted to bits by the Panzer IV. Its main gun proving too much for the tiny, squishy Americans. And the M8, no, that's the Jeep. The M8, of course, is still there. It will move no more. And Luftwaffe field troops have arrived. Usually one of the reasons why people in fact go for the Luftwaffe once. That someone asked me. Because the Luftwaffe troops, due to their sort of Luftwaffe nature of rather mostly possibly having elite repair. I mean, they're expert repairmen. Probably, again, if we're to sort of figuring in the history bits, well, they are usually could have been Luftwaffe ground personnel, you know, people that repair airplanes and then sort of moving it over to tanks. Well, that's not going to be that hard. So yeah, there you go, expert repairmen. Putting that Panzer IV together instantly. Another Panzer IV fighting off against the enemy, although without armored skirts it is going to be rather vulnerable to bazooka rockets. Careful about that. And again, I'm not really fond of the way he's sort of thrusting in his Panzer IVs without support. And there we go, sticky bomb. That's... oh dear. Damaged engine. And this Panzer IV is in a rather big spot of trouble because he wanted to rush it ahead without support. I mean, there's a reason why it says infantry support tank. It's not because... and that infantry bit is very important. That means it's there to support infantry. It's not there to just lead the charge itself. As you might have noticed, this Panzer IV is not a happy Panzer IV. The engine is on fire and things are moving very slowly. Troops are advancing, perhaps hoping to salvage that Panzer IV, but it's too late. Anti-tank gun though is ready. The Jeep acting as the sort of forward observer, but no, it turns around. As a Panzer IV moves into flank, oh dear. Clever move, and this anti-tank gun might in fact be cleared out. Panzer grenades advancing, but they are coming under fire from the riflemen. And the anti-tank gun is knocked out. And I do believe it's time for the mid-game analysis. A Jeep is about to blow up, possibly, or at least take quite some damage. What is the situation? Well, currently Latrodectus is slowly but surely turning the tide. Although he is being rather risky at the same time, though his heavy emphasis on Panzer Force is certainly working out, and it certainly would be a bit harder for your opponent to judge it, because this is not really the usual standard, and when the parts that weren't, the lots of Panzer Grenadiers, they were still sort of the thing you'd usually sort of suspect, well, that's going to lead to an armored car, isn't it, Dane? And I'd say yes. But then again, that doesn't exclude that someone might go for a Panzer IV, and again, that's why I say always have some sort of anti-tank assets, and he was certainly somewhat more prepared, but still, it caught him rather in a nasty spot, and he's not really had much luck in actually knocking out any of the Panzer IVs as of yet, whereas they've knocked out the M8, cleared out the anti-tank gun, because, oh wait, that wasn't supported. And his Rangers were certainly also taking a beating, but now they're moving in with a vengeance. Center, well, it wasn't really necessary to put up a forward barracks there, but he's holding most of the maps, so he's certainly going to have some advantage against Latrodectus. Question is, can he actually push it? Can he use it? And will he get some sort of upgrade for the supply yard, so the upkeep will be lower? All good questions. Latrodectus, on the other hand, needs to be a bit more careful with his Panzer Force. He needs to support them with infantry, and he needs to begin securing some more territory ASAP. So let's return to the fight. Keep taking fire from the Panzer IV. Riflemen forcing away the Panzer Grenadiers. More forces advancing on the Panzer IV. Panzer IV Kampfwagen will have to turn away. BAR's equipped. Sticky bomb on the Panzer IV. Oh dear, that might make him a bit of a target. Yes, there we go. Damaged N1x0n Rangers moving in. Bazooka rockets flying. Oh dear, they do not penetrate the frontal armor. Anti-tank on getting recruit. Oh dear, this Panzer IV might be lost. Rangers taking heavy losses, and Panzer IV out of control just as it gained veterancy, instead giving the American riflemen the veterancy, but Panzer Grenadiers are charging ahead, and these forces are simply too thinly spread, too wounded, too damaged. There's nothing to really keep them up. No medic station to pull in the wounded and recreate them as fresh infantry teams. No such luck. And looks like something was lost again. Yes, the anti-tank gun cleared out once more by the efficient Panzer Grenadiers, and the Jeep blown to bits as well.
Initiating defensive operations.
Creating a small bonfire which the Panzer Grenadiers watch with glee while they secure the area. Americans putting together what they can, rather than moving in from the south. Fresh ones apparently from the forward barracks. Oh dear. Using a full Panzer Grenadier team to recruit the anti-tank gun. He really must be expecting some sort of nasty armor business, and not really relying much on the Panzer Force for it. A bit curious otherwise, because that's a 255 manpower he's just thrown out to recruit an anti-tank gun. Panzer IV advances, and why didn't he use the Luftwaffe troops, which would have been a cheaper choice and wouldn't have cost him an entire infantry team? Again, that's sort of a prioritizing. And now the Wirbelwind has arrived. Wirbelwind Flakpanzer. Opening up on these riflemen with its flak-feeling mount. Suppressing them. Good show there. Panzer Grenadiers getting gunned down. Americans are once more charging ahead. Remaining Panzer IV opens up. Could get sticky bombed and knocked out by bazooka fire. Will it happen? Will it happen? Luftwaffe troops taking quite a bit of automatic fire in the rear. Anti-tank on firing support, and the riflemen take an absolute beating from the Panzer IV, while others are getting shredded by the Wirbelwind. Oh dear, this is not looking good. Charging across open ground against a tank like that. Not too good at all. 16 kills.
The enemy is down to 200 points.
Another anti-tank gun on the way. No mines as of yet, but then again, he's probably hurting again a lot of resources due to that sneaky little vampire half-track, because again, you don't really expect it. And that's only going to be an advantage for quite some time, but then again, it's also going to be harder to detect. But then again, he's having some odd resource income numbers, as you might have noticed. That ought to be the sort of clue that perhaps my opponent is stealing some of my resources. That bastard. But Latrodectus seems to have turned things around for now. Going now for the Panzerjäger command. And increased squad sizes. Well, this is good. And the Wirbelwind charges right into the base. That seems a bit odd. It's not going to do much against the base buildings. It might do something to the infantry, but that's about it. Although it shouldn't be infantry, that is in cover. In particular heavy cover. Bazookas missed though. Anti-tank gun gets off a good shot on the side of the Wirbelwind, which pulls out. All quiet for the moment.
Supply lines are broken.
Pentagon securing territory up now. Kettenkratz not doing an awful lot. All quiet for the moment. Alles ruhig. And let us speed things up a bit then, just for the fun of it.
Ground out there.
Yes, sir.
Rangers ready, anti-tank gun, riflemen advancing, perhaps making a push in the center to throw out the Americans there. I mean, just another brief note, I mean, it's not entirely bad that he just sort of tried to keep him there, even despite having suffering losses. I mean, as long as he did that, he would still have most of the map, he would still have most of the victory points, and in that sense, trying to keep your opponent tied down to one part of the map isn't an entirely bad strategy, but I couldn't help but feel he might have wanted something to keep the fight going on longer, a medic station, and he really needed some mines, some barbed wire, some tank traps, or something to make it harder to move in here as well. I mean, he should have used the time when he was occupying the Panzer fleet up there to fortify this area and make it harder to take. Sadly, that seems to have not the case, and let us return to the fight. Anti-tank gun is ready, Kettenkratz in the center. And riflemen, rangers, and panzer grenades now equipped with assault rifles, and again with 4-man squads, the panzer grenades can gain a small bonus since they can get 4 assault rifles for only 75 munitions. Rangers, riflemen engaging fire with the panzer grenades with assault rifles. Suppressive volleys going out from the riflemen, but they're simply getting torn to bits. Further riflemen, rangers firing away, but the firepower is simply too much. The panzer grenades are not dying fast enough. In the face of all of this, and the Americans have absolutely no way to replace all the losses in such a manner, so they don't have to constantly spend new resources. But the further arrival and riflemen have perhaps changed the tide a bit. Panzer grenades are forced away. The Kettenkratz is still there, though. I do believe it's time to have a look at LatrodectusUnloaded. His panzer grenades in a slightly nasty spot. The Americans re-securing the central point, but then again clearing out the rifleman team is certainly going to be to Latrodectus' advantage. And currently again, I mean, he's really soaking away most of his resources in a manner most nasty. Well, those panzer grenades take a bit of a beating. It's not quite compared to the one the Americans took. Although this rifleman team, this panzer grenade team needs to get out of there, and there we go.
Losing a munitions depot to the enemy.
The Vilven proving to be, well, a nuisance, but that's about it. Has taken quite a bit of damage, but only managed 3 dead Americans so far. And the Kettenkratz gets spotted. Oh dear. Captain Kettenkratz no more. Oh wait, he cloaks and he's out of there. Hooray. Panzer grenades getting ready for a new counterattack, leading the Ausgangsbataillon of the 2nd Panzer Division. Well, Abteilung more likely.
Send your orders.
We are losing ground.
And what is this? More assault rifles being equipped. Panzer grenades charging ahead. And something's taking fire here. Nothing apparently. There's someone being panicky. And charging across open ground. Oh dear, I mean, that's where you don't want to do it like that. For example, I mean, just as you noticed there, those Panzer Grenadiers took an absolute pasting without doing much damage to the Rangers. Seem perhaps a bit too eager to retreat rather than firing away as well, although they are facing a bit more damage because they weren't taking a point rather than focusing on the Panzer Grenadiers. Bad priorities right there. Rifleman forced away and might be cut down. Oh dear. And looks like Mr. Nixon is simply taking too many losses without the ability to really replace them. More Rangers arriving though. Still no medic stations. Not entirely pleased about that. Riflemen hanging out by the church, hoping that divine intervention shall save them. Perhaps. Or at least just reinforcements from the church will be there. Panzer grenades charging ahead once more. Riflemen awfully wounded, firing away. Veterans won. Whatever shall they do? The assault rifles are simply too much, and now they're retreating right past the Panzer Grenades, getting gunned down in the process. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Shall they make it? No. Wait, they did. Sorry, my fault. They did make it. A lot of riflemen were hurt in that making of that scene, but not that one. He's still there. And the vampire half-track is still having an absolutely cozy time. My goodness. That certainly has to be the cushiest job in currently the entire battle. Basically just sitting there hiding by the woods while everybody is dying. Panzer IV now surrounded by Rangers. That's not entirely beneficial. And the Panzer IV is rather realizing that's what you call a bad thing. But due to defensive veterans, it's able to absorb some more fire. And he's finally equipping it with some armored skirts. My goodness, Latrodectus, you fat bastard. Wirbelwind has been repaired and is advancing through. Center has been secured. Forward barracks cleared out. I mean, I'm not entirely sure why people want the church. I mean, something a bit more laid back, like for example, this cafe would be better. For example, if you're from here, or perhaps, you know, this building, something, you know, not obvious, not right in the middle of everything, something you can also easily defend. But that's sort of just my opinion. And apparently Fallschirmjägers are now being called in to assist the 2nd Panzer Division, probably from the 3rd Fallschirmjäger Regiment, which was one of the units fighting there against the Americans. Fought bravely. Although it wasn't a full division, still doing quite a bit of damage. And the Wirbelwind catches some Rangers right out in the open, opening up, and killing quite a few right away. And the rest are pinned, forced into retreat. Anti-tank on its ready. Riflemen advancing. Rangers getting ready as well. Not much luck there, though. And apparently Latrodectus is actually expecting some armor of a heavier sort of type, so he's now getting a Marder 3. The Marder 3 based on the chassis of the Panzer 38T. There were 2 variants of the Marder 3, by the way. There was the one equipped with the Pak 40, and there was the one equipped with a Russian field cannon. It had a slightly larger caliber, actually. Panzer grenades advancing in the south. Riflemen getting slaughtered out in the open. Panzer grenades advancing, firing away with their assault rifles. And game over. Apparently Nixon has rather realized things are not going his way. He has missed his opportunity, and it is a victory for the 2nd Panzer Division's Ausgangsabteilung. And of course the unsung hero of this game was the Vampire half-track. I mean, if you really saw the amount of resources he got in despite having quite a bit of the map, terrible. I mean, again, the Vampire half-track can really do quite a bit, and of course give you the resources while ensuring that your opponent will really be bled dry. Jolly good show there, Latrodectus, and again, that's rather why I wanted to show it. Otherwise, I mean, we saw some good infantry movement, but at the same time, he wasn't really able to keep it up against it. Saw that. No medic stations, no mines, tank traps, or barbed wire, except that little bit there. Not quite fortunate. I mean, we saw some decent strategy in trying just to keep sort of Latrodectus pinned in on the side, but he lost too much doing so, and he sent in his anti-tank gun unsupported. Not good. Anyhow, so there you go. I hope you enjoyed this fight. If you did, why not subscribe or tell your friends? And if you didn't, well, why not send in a replay of your own? This is Imperial Dane saying cheers, and tune in tomorrow for more Propagandacasts.